Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good evening.
Welcome to the Greek Scientists Society inaugural conference on space economy. Why space matters for a safe and prosperous nation.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Dr. Vasilis Tsiafakis. Dr. Vasilis Tsiafakis is working for the Inmarsat PLC in London as Senior Manager in the Satellite Lease Business Development and Solution Engineering. And his main scope is to expand lease business on space segment and develop new dynamic and flexible lease products. Academically, he supported experimental setup and procedures for contacting various researchers about brain activity and human behavior. He also worked as a member of the Greek delegation in the International Telecommunications Union, contributed in final meetings of the Geneva 06 agreement, presented 97% of the Greek requirements licensed, and many more multilateral and bilateral bases with the conferences. Throughout his career, he worked as a senior engineer, group leader, and as a head of multiplexing and network design. Vasilis, we're very excited to learn more about space.
Uh,
The
Thank you,
floor is
thank you.
yours.
You said too many things, and I think that the floor today is mainly for our great people that they join in this discussion and in this table. Um, I'm aware and a bit conscious about the time that we will have together with us, Mr. Potsis. Mr. Potsis is the president of the Hellenic Industrial Space Association, and also he's a director of the business development at the EFA Ventures. And it is important for us because coming from a session that was discussing with three professors, now would like to get a little bit our hands on the space industry in Greece and where we are. Thanasi, can you give us an intro and tell us about the space industry in Greece and where we're sitting?
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. This is extremely nice workshop that we are doing here, and especially the event that brings together the whole Greek environment and the ecosystem that works in space. So for us, it's something that we have dreamed in the past, and eventually this is now happening. And for us, is a great honor, and it's really a great step forward for the Greek space ecosystem that brings together all this excellent expertise that we have around the globe. So I have the privilege today to tell you a few things about the Greek space ecosystem, and starting with the space industry. So we all know that Greece started almost 15 years ago, that Greece became the full 16th member of the European Space Agency. That initiative that they triggered the organization effort to bring together the best of what we had in Greece concerning innovation technology and organize the ecosystem in such a way that will develop an industrial base that makes sense global wise. And we all know that a country without a space industry does not exist. I would say that does not exist in a way that space economy now brings a lot of money, a lot of attention, and it's a key element for the development, security, economy, and education for the next step of the country. So in Greece at the moment, we have more than 45 SMEs, more than 2,500 engineers engineers and scientists that they are working in space. And there is an ecosystem that makes more than 200 million euros turnover per year, with a steady growth of 8% per year. Even the 10 year that we had the financial crisis here in Greece, we faced a tremendous development of the local ecosystem. So what we stand here, we stand having an industry that can really present products and services both in upstream, downstream, as well as midstream. So we have companies that they are designing and producing TRL 7 plus equipment here in Greece concerning the upstream. And we're talking about areas of activities including materials, composite materials, we're talking about electronics, we're talking about ASICs that they have been space qualified. We're talking about data links, optical data links that have been tested and they will fly very soon. We're talking about software developments that they have used in order to develop space heritage for space and flying software. We have ground support equipment that they are using heavily to support the testing and the evaluation of the satellites. We have companies that they are producing downstream applications. In this area, we are quite strong and we have a lot of activities. And we are also privileged to have here in Greece Helasat, that is one of the largest space operators that give us the access to the mainstream, to the middle stream. Additionally, what is also very important in Greece, that we managed to attract investment for European and US primes that they are working in space. So we have a subsidiary here in Greece of Thales, we have a subsidiary of OHB from Germany, and we have also a subsidiary from CITAE. And recently, we had the inauguration of the activities from space coming from AWS, from Amazon Web Services, that for us give us the ticket in order to enter into the new space activities that we have, especially from US. So this is concerning the industry. Jorge will speak to you later on about the ecosystem that comes from the startups and the ESA BIC, as well as the cooperation that we have from the SI cluster that brings together the industry with the academia and start bridging what we're missing here in Greece, the cooperation between the two worlds, the world of the industry and the world of the science, the innovation and the development activities that we have in the universities and the institutes. So our message today is that we are ready. We have the ecosystem set up and we are ready to go to the next step. And what's the next step? Is the cooperation between space industry and the various big projects that we have. So which are these big projects? Is of course the cooperation with the European Space Agency that for us is growing and is getting more and more in the next coming years, and the already announced national microsatellites program. Microsatellite program of 201 million euros will put Greece as the pioneer country for the implementation of the European Union connectivity program. So these are the elements that makes us feel happy and very comfortable for the next step of the space activities in Greece. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thanasi. I will make you the question now in order to give you the time. And,
yes, please.
Because I know that the time is short for you. So my question would be, coming from the previous session, we got in an agreement that you just mentioned before, that we need synergistic efforts in order to move on. So what I would like to ask you is, can you give us, if we do have the people that are required, if university needs to do more different programs like student programs in order to support further the industry, do you have the people required? Is the need for more people? What is the status there from the industry point of view? What you would like to have in order to continue the growth or increase the growth that you mentioned up to now?
I will tell you. One of the most important things that we are missing is the development of a steady heritage, space technology made in Greece. I'm pretty sure that when the Greek industry will provide with the opportunity to develop new activities and new products, I'm pretty sure that they will manage, and this will generate a very stable and robust connection between the Greek industrial base and the primes that they are developing the space segments. This is the first thing. So what we need access to the primes. So we need to develop this synergy between the capabilities that we have here in Greece in the industry and the big primes in Europe and in the United States. So what we need all the contacts that we can leverage, all the activities that we can build in order to strengthen the relations and provide the opportunities to the Greek industry to prove themselves. Okay, this is the first thing. Second thing is the synergies between the academia and the industries in new R&D projects. Why? Because from
Thanasi? Okay. Yes.
so if you are
He's back.
combining, first of all,
Thanasi, can you please go back just a minute in your speech because we've lost connection for a minute?
Yes. The first thing that I wanted to add is that we need connection and we need opportunities for the space industry. So this means that the activities that we have now needs to be promoted in a way that we will strengthen the relation with the primes in Europe and in the United States. Why? Because we need to build what we said, the trademark space technology made in Greece. This is the first step. And there we need all the contacts that we can provide and the opportunities. And second thing is the connection between development programs of the academia and the institute and the work that this is done in the same field in Europe and mainly in the States. Why? Because in this way, we will start developing together on new space activities. So these are the two elements that we need to promote. We need to join our forces and promote these two elements, existing capabilities of the industry for new developments and the cooperation of the academic and the industry together with the development of new R&D programs.
Great, thank you, Thanasi. Yes, that makes so sense, and it's also really connected with whatever we discussed on the first panel. I would like to start and continue. And Kelly, my apologies that we didn't start, although you are the only woman in the conference. But let me say a few things about you. So Kelly is the VP of Space Commerce and Entrepreneurship at the Space Foundation. So she's technical and communication efforts, but also she's really strong on the space market. And Kelly, what we would like to have from you is to give us your view and your vision around what is the space ecosystem, what happens in the US, what happens globally, what is the space market, and what are the global opportunities in the space market.
Thank you, Vasilis. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I'm joining you all from Washington, D.C. I know it's late for some and early for some. I'm right in the middle. As Vasilis said, my name is Kelly Kiedis Ogborn, and I'm Vice President of Space Commerce and Entrepreneurship at Space Foundation. And really what I focus on is this initiative called Space Commerce Institute, which focuses on helping individuals, companies, and countries grow into and grow within the burgeoning space ecosystem and really find their market share. So what I bring to this talk today is really a broad global overview of the space ecosystem and understanding what the economic and technological drivers are that are moving the industry forward and also shaping its investment potential and growth. As an industry, as a space industry, we all end up talking to each other, I think, which is a major problem. And when we talk about economic viability and capacity of industry, it's very much in buzzwords and numbers, and you really need to distill it down into what it means. And Dr. Patsis mentioned this, and I can't agree more about the necessity of a space ecosystem. He postured it differently, but how I always say is that space is inevitable, and if you're not first, you're last. And so people need to understand how to create a strategy around taking advantage of what they have in their locality now, and then building into where the future is going to come. Because what I find so exciting about the space ecosystem is really how fast it's growing and how broad it's becoming. And every day, innovative minds are reshaping and transforming the landscape with new technologies and capabilities that are sustaining industries now, but that are also paving ways for the future. And we are building the future every day. The interesting thing about it is that it's not just by those who identify as part of the space industry. There are space ecosystems that build out that encompass everything. And hardly a day goes by without space investment playing a critical role in our lives, because the infrastructure of space and the technologies developed for space really act as an invisible backbone for products and services used by people all over the world. And some are clearly space-based, like you can draw heritage to launch vehicles and satellites and telecommunications. And some are space adjacent, like manufacturing elements. But what's even more exciting are industries that utilize the conditions of space to further progression. A perfect example of this is that there was a company that exploited the weightlessness of space to be able to manufacture medical devices that had the size and sophistication to implant into a retina. And so when you really break it down by definition and design, the economic potential of the global space ecosystem is extremely broad and it's extremely lucrative. And when you put it into context of numbers, at a top level, it's estimated that the global space market will exceed 1 trillion by 2040. And in 2020 alone, it was $447 billion, which was a 4.4% increase from the previous year. And that trend is pervasive. It's not slowing down. And so the trick for a lot of individuals and countries is to figure out where they fit within it and what those economic drivers are to kind of keep on the forefront of trends, and then also look at the technical subcomponents that you can take advantage of, whether your ecosystem has them now or whether you want to put them on in the future. And so just broadly, there are 10 economic drivers that were developed by Morgan Stanley, which have really kind of been universally adopted by the industry. And I'll just quickly scroll through them, because you'll see that a lot of these industries exist now within Greece and Cyprus, and there's also there's industries that then support them. So the 10 drivers that people are really observing are satellite launch, satellite internet, deep space exploration, lunar landing, Earth observation, asteroid mining, space debris, space tourism, space research, and manufacturing. And so when you start to posture those 10 areas, you can start to see how the branches fragment to various technologies and skill sets and industries that are really required to sustain and grow. And what I always like to challenge people to think about are what critical technologies are within those areas that can really start to give a better sense of tactically what we're talking about. And so on the top of my mind, I just jotted some down that I think will resonate with the audience. But when you start to think about the industries to sustain, off the top of my head, and it's critical to everything, is data analytics and data mining. I think that it was postured in either Forbes or some other magazine that data is going to be as critical of an asset globally as oil in the years to come. So it's what you do with it, how you capture it, how you process it, how you store it. The other interesting things that people don't realize is it all comes down to energy and energy storage, as well as environmental assessment. As we are starting to think more off-world, not just in terms of exploration, but in terms of settlement, you have to make sure that you can power things in space. If you want to power a drill on the moon, it is not as easy as plugging it into an outlet on the wall. And so these are very fundamental technical challenges that you have to balance while you have your altruism and excitement for where space is going to go. There has to be this practical business model to understand what's actually going to get us there. And then one other I'll mention, because it's left off a lot, but around this whole topic of agribusiness, I know that was a big concept in the last panel, but also about biometrics and health. A lot of people are pushing toward, humans going toward large duration flights. But one of the interesting things that people have not thought about is that the human condition is meant to have your mind engaged. And a lot of these systems are now autonomous. And so when you're having these humans interact with systems where they are just a physical body and not actually interacting, some of the challenges that they've had in these simulations has been crew mutiny, which is really interesting to think about. But you have to allow for these creature comforts and people to actually be healthy and grow as these industries sustain. And so one of the things that I just challenge people and why I sort of threw out these space adjacencies is I truly believe that in the broader space ecosystem, we're really only limited by our creativity. And people can figure out whether or not they want to use the infrastructure of space for services, the conditions of space for manufacturing, or really just find tangential uses for space-derived technologies. So there really are limitless boundaries. And for Greece and Cyprus in particular, there are these rich, innovative roots that already exist amongst the countries. The challenge is now is to figure out how each market will serve their interest and how they can create this direct terrestrial impact for the desired capabilities to scale. I'm going to stop there because I know there's a lot of conversation we need to get to, but I know we'll get to that in the questions.
Thank you, Kelly. So you just prepare the basis for at least a 10 hours discussion, but so at least. So I would like to move to Dr. Papaspilios Jorge. Dr. Jorge is the director of ESA, European Space Agency, big programs in Greece, and he's also a co-founder at Coralia. And I think in this, if you can give us some information around what is ESA BIC and what is also Coralia, put your both hats and give us a vision.
Greetings to all.
I would like here in the panel also to review how the Europe is approaching the space business if you compare it with the US, and that will create some comparisons later on in the discussion.
Thank you, Vasilis. Greetings to all wherever you are. It is a real pleasure for me to be with you today. As already Kelly and Thanasis mentioned, the space sector is a driving force for growth, employment, and competitiveness, not only for the sector itself, but also as an horizontal platform for growth for many other sectors of the economy. Kelly mentioned that we're talking about a market that is 400 billion worldwide, over 400 billion. It is growing as the second sector after oil and gas. And if we go and see the numbers in Greece we are moving at a double-digit growth rate, even during the crisis. Also, the employment in the sector is increasing by 17%. This is the number for 2020, similar number for Greece. To get a little bit more of X-ray to what is happening in Greece, obviously we are still very small, but with a significant improvement. In 2014, the overall space activities, as we can estimate from the SA cluster members and the rest of the activities, it was 147 million euros. In 2020, where we took our last measurements, the turnover increased to 241 million euros, 65% above the previous year that I mentioned before. Also, the EBITDA is extremely positive, and important to mention that 50% of the activity concerns exports. Thanasis mentioned also, just to give to all of us a bit more of information about the developments in the country, that at least for the industry, because obviously before that, even up in the 80s, there were many activities on space in Greece, but in the main industrial impetus was in 2005 when Greece joined the European Space Agency. This was combined with a financial contribution of approximately 10 million euros per year, but this contribution came back to industrial participation in ESA projects. This was followed by a significant also milestone, the establishment of the Industrial Association, where Thanasis is the chairman, and in 2009, the creation of the Greek Space Cluster that brought together also the universities research centers and the civil society, mostly the non-for-profits and organizations of students at many Greek universities. Important to say that in 2016, we had another milestone with a single ministry in the country responsible for space matters, the Ministry of Digital Government. And later on, this also led to the establishment of the Hellenic Space Agency, later renamed to Hellenic Space Center, where Professor Daglis is the chairman and speaks in the previous panel. So for the first time, we have in the country a very well-organized base with all the actors in the Industrial Association and the cluster, ELKED, the Greek Space Center, with their responsibilities for space as an independent organization, and a unique ministry in the administration. So how does this sound for Greece? I think this is a recipe for some success, because we have managed to activate the quadruple helix that is necessary for this economic development. Now, this led to the participation of Greece in the optional programs of ESA, and actually the tripling of the Greek participation there. That we are actually getting all the fruits of that these recent years. And in March 2021, we had also a major milestone that was the establishment of the ESA Space Incubator in Greece, the ESAP Greece, where I'm currently directing, that will add to this ecosystem 30% additional entities. 25 new startups will be created, supported in this. And finally, as Thanasis mentioned, in 2022, we expect the call for the Greek microsatellites program with an initial budget of 200 million that will change the landscape. So from 2009, 11 companies, 2022, 75 members in the cluster, and around 95 entities that we have in the Greek space catalog. 2,500 employees, more than 200 million euros of activities, 50% exports, as I mentioned before. Last point for this introduction about the ESAP Greece, that is already closed the first year and a few months of operation. We have already selected 6 startups, very fresh, experienced teams. Some of them already received VC investments, of which, just to say the names for you, Loxio, Cloud Signals, Promilis, Bitresus, Circuits Integrated, Insignio. Applications on IoT, 5G backhauling applications, routing for ships from Promilis, Bitresus bringing special blockchain in the operations of satellites, and Circuits Integrated with a very special new antenna for satellite communications. Last but not least, on the good news, our team, Mind the Path, won in the very recent Pan-European final of the Cassini Hackathons the first prize, with an excellent application using machine learning, artificial intelligence, for a very promising sector, and most probably a very nice startup that we will see in the next years, also contributing to the Greek ecosystem.
Oh, thank you, Jorge. That was really impressive, I have to say, and really good to hear. So I would like, before getting into the discussion and the question session, I would like to introduce also Professor and Dean of the Faculty of Sciences and Technology at the American University of Cyprus, Professor George Vekouli. George, can you please give us some background on what happens in academia and what are the opportunities and the challenges that you face in Cyprus in the space?
Yes. Thank you, Vasily. First of all, I would like to thank Theo, Vasilis, and Anthea for this wonderful event. So far, I have kept 5 pages of notes from these amazing things that we have been discussing. As Athanasios Potsis said, our purpose as a new university, as a recently established university in Cyprus, Larnaca, is first of all to understand how the market is moving, how the dynamics of these space ecosystems we're talking about. We are particularly interested in the forces that drive today's global market. As Jorge said, the number one industry is oil and gas. This is something that we have included in our programs. And number 2 is space, which is also included in our programs. At the moment, the university is running the Department of Computer Sciences. So we have a computer science course which is related to oil and gas operations and also aviation and space. From October, we will have a maritime studies department which will bridge the market of computer science, space, and how all this relates to maritime activities like maritime safety, cybersecurity. These are things that we didn't cover, but I think Professor Barras and the other professor also mentioned these things. Coming to space economics and the space ecosystem, our new Department of Aeronautical and Space Engineering tries to take all these aspects of space economics into consideration. Meaning, we're not only considering space, we start our studies from aviation. We consider the basis of space being aviation, aeronautics. So we have a bachelor program on aeronautical engineering, aerospace, and then space. Okay, that's the fields we try to cover. And although my specialization is space physics, and I would associate myself more with Professor Douglas, I have been following Professor Douglas for my whole life, and I have read a lot of his books and his research. So my personal experience is on space physics as a developer. I'm manufacturing digital logic systems for deep space missions, mainly for NASA. So this is my field. But when you create a new program for a university, you have to take into consideration the market, space economics, the ecosystem that we have been describing, and all space activities, starting from aviation all the way to space. And then when we will have all this, then I can focus on space physics, and I will try to relate myself with Professor Douglas on this.
Great, George. Thank you so much. And we'll see, or at least that was one of the important conclusions of the previous session, the importance of academia in this whole effort and the synergy, as Jorge and Thanasis said before. But Kelly, now that you do have the background, how Europe is working and how Greece started the last 10 years in space, and with all the experience that you have into the space market and the global space market, what would you be your advices? Which are the areas that you would believe that the global opportunities, the global opportunities can be special for Greece and Cyprus? And is there a space for us to space opportunities?
It's a great question, and I'm glad you started off by posturing the space to space, because I know that you knew exactly where I was going to go with this question. So when I think about opportunities within the space market, I really categorize it based on the two main market drivers that I see, and it's the space to space market and the space to earth market. So the space to space market are essentially goods and services produced in space for use in space. So those are a lot of the technological backbone type issues that are going to be really relevant for research done on any of the free flying spaceports and low Earth orbit that are going to be utilized then for Moon, Mars, and beyond missions, or anything that's like satellite refueling or servicing in space. The space to Earth market is really the one that I like to focus on, because while the space to space market really captures the exciting headlines like asteroid mining and Mars colonies, it drives a lot of investment, but it still has a long way to go, where the space to earth market is actually very lucrative, very tangible, and very accessible. So as I mentioned before, the global space market in 2020 was $447 billion, and actually 95% of that was driven from the space to earth market. And so what that is looking at is the utilization of space-based assets and technology for terrestrial applications on Earth. And when you start to build that out, that's actually where, in my opinion, a lot of the opportunities should start, because there are a lot of localities, a lot of startups, a lot of basic research that enables those industries or can utilize those industries. Like, for example, Greece has always had a very robust telecommunications and shipping industry. I mean, that has direct applications to satellite data and other entities going down. I also think that, we touched on agriculture a lot, and I know that that was a big topic in the last session, but the agribusiness, both utilizing space-based technologies for better agricultural processes and tracking, but even those basic practices are going to be really relevant for where the collective community wants to push forward for space exploration. And so one of the things that I always tell people to do is start locally with what industries you have, because you can always draw that heritage to space and figure out how to build it farther. There's a lot of people that want to jump automatically to building a spaceport or having a launch facility or having their own national rocket. And while that is very exciting, that is also not the best strategy, because you should build into that when you actually have the ecosystem that can bring it to bear.
Makes sense, but you hit a sensitive area there about the spaceport. It's something that probably we'll discuss later on. But before getting this, and now we are on an open discussion, so the questions are for all, and please join in the discussion. But Jorge, I would like to take the advantage of a discussion that we had and saying what is space and what is not space business and industry. Is it easy, or is it a space fiction? And I really would like to tell us your approach on what space needs from sciences, from engineering, or from people. But I would also like to add some keywords that came from the previous session that we had. And the keywords are services, are censoring, communications, and the question that comes: should we start investing on hardware or on software or space?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vasilis. Very interesting, the previous also positioning of Kelly on many aspects. Let me tell you a few things that I believe are changing in the space market, because they are also driving forces for what we need to do in Greece and Cyprus. First of all, the space activities are moving out of being mostly a government matter to the private sector, and we see that happening more and more. The second is that we see a very large number of governments investing in space. This is increasing. The US still maintains the first place with something like 50%, but this is shrinking from the 75% in 2000. Let's take a view of some of the countries that are investing in that: Israel, Brazil, Argentina, Kazakhstan, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Ukraine, and Turkey. Okay, so all of them are now having strong space programs. Furthermore, we are moving mostly from large systems to smaller ones, CubeSats, small satellites, constellation of those that allow even small groups and even startups to operate in space. We see many business models from startups that are launching a constellation of satellites to measure something additional, to monitor something additional, so that they have a competitive advantage. And this is possible today. We see hundreds of these business models out there. Some of those have received significant investments. Additionally, from closed data, we have now mostly many open data, especially in Europe with Copernicus. We have better positioning systems that can go up to centimeters, and therefore those that are working in the downstream have a lot of new possibilities to create new interesting applications there. Finally, a lot of new venture capitals that are focusing on investing here. This will bring additional and faster innovations. So this is the framework we have. Therefore, there is an opportunity also for countries like Greece to enter this market. We need, of course, to position ourselves in a very strategic way. From my point of view, and mostly looking into what is happening with the Greek strategy, with the ministry, the Hellenic Space Center, the cluster, etc., I see some special areas of interest for Greece that are anything related to microsatellite technologies, where there is a small opportunity, but this will build a lot of capacities, especially if the country has an operational constellation. This will give also additional capacities also for the downstream. For Greece, 5G telecommunications overall, but especially 5G and optical is of high importance. There are a lot of investments. We are very good in the 5G sector, so we will see a lot of things happening there. And then on services for shipping, agriculture, defense and security are of utmost importance. Now, another thing that we need to clarify, and I like very much the number that Kelly gave us, is 95% of the global investment for space are on space-to-Earth activities. 95%. 5% of those are for exploration and other things. This means that space technology is not only, of course, to help astronauts, scientists explore stars, planets, and the creation of the universe. The most important part of space technologies is that it helps us in our daily lives. There are a lot of technology transfer, decades of innovations from space, the microwave oven, the sports shoes, and many coming from space, additional to the new applications that are possible in our everyday life. It is very commonly said that every person in his day uses almost 40 satellites for the data he receives. Now, last, so what I see as the role of a country in this changing environment is for us to strengthen our participation in the European Space Agency. That is our center of gravity. Large projects, missions, very well organized, where we need to participate, as well as the European Union programs of the new EUSPA agency, and also some acquisition of additional infrastructure that is needed, because, okay, we create products, but we need to have the flight heritage. And to do that, at the end, those need to be tested. They need to work in this harsh environment, etc. So we need some additional infrastructure. Very important, and we are trying to lobby on this. Hopefully you will agree with me that we need also a potential data fusion center for the collection, processing, and sharing of data focused on the national needs, and especially on the maritime sector. That center could be a significant asset that will also support another significant economic sector for the country. Last but not least, space is not something so exotic. The sciences that we use to create all the technologies is engineering, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, electronic engineers, chemical engineers, life science, software development, data handling. This is what we do in space, under, of course, the specific environment. So it's not exotic. Everyone can participate. Obviously, as I said before, with some need of those special infrastructure at national level.
Thank you, Jorge. So let me put some conclusions down, and then we can discuss around these conclusions. And I would again like to start with you, Kelly. So we can say that strong areas for Greece is always maritime and communication, which will involve data. As you said, data is the new gold in the universe. And then we have fisheries and fishing methods. We discuss about censoring, and of course sustainability, climate sense, and all these details. All these are areas that Greece can have a strong position into the space market. Do you believe that these are enough for the global market and for an investor coming from the US to support all this effort in Greece? What someone would like to see from a company or from a cluster in Greece in order to say that we can count this as a global opportunity?
That's a great question, primarily because I think it's looking at two strategies. It's looking at space as it is now and space as what it's posturing to become. And the reason I say that is because I was mentioning this backstage before the session, but my organization, the Space Foundation, puts on a space symposium every year in August, and it's one of the largest global conveners of the space community. And there's two expo halls. There's the large expo hall, which has your familiar space entities and names, and then you have a smaller expo hall, which contains a lot of the technological infrastructure type components that are maybe at a TRL 3 to 6, or a lot of ideas that are being discussed. And people were joking this year that a lot of the conversations in the smaller expo hall are going to be driving the larger expo hall in 3 to 5 years. So I think that in terms of attracting investment and attracting attention, it really goes back to a comment I made earlier about being able to balance altruism and excitement for where space is going to come and understanding the pragmatic business elements. And I think that also then goes into an investor's appetite for risk, because there's a spectrum within space. I know it was mentioned earlier that private capital outpaces government 2 to 1. And what's interesting about that shift is that you can now have countries located anywhere on the globe funded by investors located anywhere on the globe. Our space practices and space companies are no longer nationally tied like they used to be back when, the space agencies were created, especially back, looking from a US perspective of Sputnik and our space race with Russia. And so I think it's an interesting proponent because there's a spectrum of investors in terms of interest. And I think you will see those in terms of those that want to invest in technologies that are relevant now and from like a systems component, and those that actually want to place bets on where the future of space is going to go. And so from a national strategy, I think it's having a healthy dose of what you want to put forward as a country in terms of your technological bets and investment. I will say for primes, what I've noticed is the trend is somewhat similar. There are systems and components and subprimes that they want to integrate now. But a lot of these companies are now looking about how are they going to be competitive in 3, 5, and 10 years and attract the dollars and attention of an ESA or a NASA or other government agencies. And so they are now looking for these new agile capabilities from companies and inventors. And so that's more starting a strategy of a conversation on the future supply chain as it is an investment in the technology now, but they really go hand in hand. I hope that answered what you were saying, but it's kind of a moving chessboard.
It is, and of course, it's not easy to get answers, and it's not easy to decrypt where we are, and because it's a floating area, as you said, Jorge, before going to you, because I would like to discuss all together the result of the previous session about private functions and public sector and how this can get together and how can we improve this connection. I would like to go to you, George, because we all realized from both sessions that academia had to take a big part, had to support the people, had to support the general awareness of the people what is space that is not exotic, as Dr. Jorge said before.
Yes.
How ready you are to support this? What is the help needed, if there is, and what should be the plans of the universities in Cyprus and generally for the universities in order to be ready for this growth?
Yes. I will state again what Dr. Pozzi said. We need the space industry along with ESA, since we operate in a European environment, and with academia to proceed to new R&D projects, which means we have to work hand by hand, and we need to operate as one. The ancient Greeks used to say, all is one. Okay, I think we have to proceed as one. We need to throw away our ego. In this case, we need to focus on new R&D projects, reset our minds, focus on the projects, get the job done. We need the SMEs, we need government, we need the Greek Scientist Society. We need the universities. The universities, like, okay, we analyze what's going on. We create education. Maybe we need new space education. Maybe we have to adapt to the new conditions that exist in this modern space ecosystem. We have to compete. The Greek space industry, I'm not sure how ready it is to compete with the other industries. We have to work, we have to compete. The level of the universities has to be risen. Okay, in Cyprus, we try to create, we created a university from scratch. We listen to the industry, we listen to everybody, and immediately we put this inside our programs. We constantly recruit high-profile instructors to do that, and I think that's the steps we have to follow, especially when we have neighboring countries that invested public money of millions and millions of dollars, and they still do it. And we have to compete as I don't know, as a nation. I don't know.
It makes sense, but we will also, yes, need the universities to step in and create the tools,
Yes.
the tools, the training tools, the experience tools. But I can hear the needs and I can understand them. So closing this part of the discussion and going to the Q&As, Jorge, how can we help further this connection between the private functions and the public sector. What are the obstacles? What are the challenges? What would like to add in our strategy as a country, or what would like to change in the way that we are approaching the problems to move this forward?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Vasily. As I mentioned before, at least in Greece and hopefully also for Cyprus, already or very soon, space is an activity that requires coordination. Each one of the players needs to play their role. And as I said before, to have this quadruple helix very well coordinated so that it actually helps everyone in them. Now, what we expect, for example, from the administration is, first of all, to provide and coordinate the national strategy with the contribution, consultation of all the players. We need them to provide wherever needed infrastructure if this is not allowing the further development of the sector, and to provide only the right incentives, not more than what is actually needed. It is very interesting to say that in Greece, we are moving from grants to investments. A very large community of venture capital business angels are now also part of the national strategy. And this, in my view, will also help the space sector also to move faster. From the universities, the most important thing that we need to achieve is the introduction of curricula related to space the soonest possible. 2 years ago, in Greece, we have zero curriculum with space technologies. Today, we are in a very happy position after the coordination with the academia in Greece, that we have the first school on aerospace in the Kapodistrian University. We have also the first master on space technologies and application that receive around 30 to 50 applications every year in coordination with of the Kapodistrian University and University of Patras. Because the biggest problem that we all face at the moment is the lack of people. This obviously is also an opportunity for a brain regain. We will very much like to have Kelly in Greece in a very nice position. I don't know, but people like her, people like the professors that we heard today, all the entrepreneurs in the sector, or you, Vasilis, you are the person that may help in the further development of the country, either by coming back to Greece or by joining forces in many of the activities that we do. So that last part for the national development is also very key. I remind that for countries like Taiwan, Korea, the big change in the technological sector in those two countries came after the attraction of thousands of the scientists they have abroad. So if we manage to do the same in the space sector or overall for the economy, yes, this could be a very, very good first significant initiative to achieve those goals for this sector.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you. What to say, and I also hope that we will manage to bring Kelly in Greece, and not only for vacations, but let's start the questions, and if we have a few minutes at the end, we can see what are the quick wins that we can get on this. Thank you for this. So, as a PhD candidate on emotional intelligence, and although I am researching a similar topic, I also had the aspiration to combine emotional intelligence with behavioral economics and analytics with the space industry. Do you think that there is a room for development?
Is this to any of us?
a difficult question, I have to say. Kelly, yes?
Yeah, so I would actually respond with a resounding yes. And the reason is there were a bunch of forecasts for some of the skill sets that are going to be necessary to grow and sustain. And it wasn't necessarily posturing for space, but just for innovation and research and development broadly. And the quote unquote soft skills, and I actually don't like calling them soft skills because they actually are very hard and quantifiable in nature. They can be. But those rank higher than a lot of the STEM capabilities, because if you look at how space is progressing, it's going to be this tightly woven integration of industries and backgrounds and skill sets and systems, and having all of those talk to each other in a way that is merged for one forward mission is just going to be absolutely critical. And so I would say behavioral economics and emotional intelligence are like right on the head about what kind of backgrounds you would need.
Correct. I just want to add to this that for me also is a yes. And since I'm receiving around 300 business plans per year from all the deal flow that we have here, I haven't seen a combination of those two sectors yet, at least in what I have seen. So there is potentially a very nice opportunity here.
And for me is a big yes. Emotional intelligence is really important, and getting also our feet on the space to space area. I think that this will become even more creative, and the academia, and this is really important to support such topics. Because the future space industry can benefit from additive manufacturing technology. Is it possible to share any insights of the potential for this technology in space-related applications?
I can start that one if you want. So yes, again, you will probably hear me say that for any industry that I think there's a direct heritage to space for all, but particularly around additive manufacturing. One of the critical components that I have seen it be probably the most utilized, which also the most potential, is around the new design and printing of engines to get to space, but then also for satellite technology. So as we are looking more and more for activities within low Earth orbit, you are going to need lighter engines with different capacities to carry different payloads, whether it's a research project, a human eventually, right? And so the ability for additive manufacturing for 3D printing, you can make them quicker, you can make them lighter, and you can actually make them tailored to whatever property you want to tailor them for. It's the same thing for satellite technology. Anybody who's in the space industry hears about space debris and space traffic management and space situational awareness, and it gives them heartburn, because the more activity that you do in space, you have to account for more things in space. And so better manufacturing techniques through additive that will allow for the recyclability and usability of satellites in different capacities is going to be really, really critical. And I think it's going to be a big investment driver.
Correct. Just to add that additive manufacturing will not be only important in what we do here on Earth for space, but is also needed on space. If you need to produce something that has been broken or whatever, so we have also the need to move additive manufacturing to space, and there is a need for some additional steps here. Therefore, I believe that there is a lot of things that we can also do in this sector.
Yes, I can't agree more with both, and for me is a big yes, because it's not only that it's required here on Earth, but the cost sending something to space is that big. Being capable to 3D print or create something in space because there was an incident, because there is a malfunction, anything that will just eliminate the cost of the whole process, creating and sending this into space. So yes, it's an amazing topic. I think I've saw one more question, which is for you directly, Jorge. How Greece space industry compares to the rest of the European member countries that are ESA members? I've
Yes.
seen some questions, some
We
answers there.
are small. The contribution of Greece to the ESA programs is only 0.4%. This is less than our actual population or GDP in comparison to the rest of the participants in the European Space Agency. This means that we need to invest more as a country, of course, based on what we discussed already. Nevertheless, we have achieved to have some capacities and strength in specific sectors, and therefore we are in the business. We are not out of business. Having this into account, having also in mind that unfortunately Greece was completely left out of big European systems like Galileo, so we have zero contribution. Zero participation with a lot of contribution. We need to take this more seriously for the specific areas that we have the capacities. I personally believe that during the last years, the Greek administration has completely changed, and now they take this very seriously. And therefore, we have a national strategy. For those of you that are aware, there is such a strategy, and all the players, we are trying to facilitate, build, and support that. We know, as I mentioned before, the sectors and areas that we have capacities to get more engagement. And with the milestone programs that we will see coming in the next months, I believe that we will manage to improve further.
Thank you, Jorge. So, conscious of the time, first of all, before giving the floor to everyone to give a final note, I would like to thank you so much for being here. It was exciting for me because in this panel we managed to have both a vision on the global market, the industry, how European and Greek market works, and what the startups that we have, and of course the academia and the support of the academia in all this. So for me it was a really exciting session. So concluding, Kelly, starting again from you, what would be for you the next step for the Greek space, Greek and Cypriot space ecosystem? What would you say, or what would you advise?
I'll try not to lay the groundwork for 10 more hours of discussion. I would say, and it's a theme that's been pervasive throughout this entire talk, is the tight coordination of everyone that's involved, from academia to government coverage, and understanding the role that they play and how they can support each other in the industries that need to be supported. A lot of times there are these multi-strategies running in tandem, but they don't overlap in the ways that they need to overlap. And so I think figuring out those collaboration points is going to be critical, whether it's investment amongst the two, support amongst the two. That's really how you start a framework for any of this.
Vasily, I think we lost Vasily.
Yes, I think we lost connection.
Okay, then let me add.
Yes, please.
Yes, add to this final point. Also, in the framework of this very interesting panel and this gathering, my personal feeling for a next step is to find ways to bring the Greeks abroad with the Greeks in the country together in discussing, putting a common framework, participating in the national strategy, looking for common endeavors and projects so that we can actually support and help not only everyone personally, but also what we are discussing today, that is Greece, Cyprus, and space.
Yes.
Yes, and also from my side, it was a pleasure today to meet all of you. I personally learned a lot of new things. Our next step as a university focused on technological excellence and new R&D achievements. We will try to bridge this gap with the Greek space industry and the European Space Agency. So next time we will meet, we will have some news regarding this bridge, and probably we will have set up some new projects with our new partners.
That would be amazing. Vasilis, are you back? Do you want to say something?
I'm back. Thank you, Anthony. What to say? I don't know what was, which part I was said and you could listen, or which part I said and I was speaking to myself. It looks like, a space put his hands on, and we had this space lost communication. No, for me, I would like to thank everyone. It was a great panel. All the connection between the global market and the European market and the academia and the industry was a great area. Thousands of questions, but also great steps forward. I would like to keep as a motto what Dr. Jorge said, that space is exotic, but space is not exotic. So that's it's just something simple. It's just something that it's here to improve our everyday life. Yes, thank you for me.
Thank you, Vasilis.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So to conclude, I would like to say a big thank you to all of our space economy specialists for their participation, their enlightening presentations, and the valuable discussions we had this evening in both our panels. A big thank you to our moderator for these very interesting topics about space. Vasilis, thank you. Vasilis is the administration of the inaugural conference on the space economy of the Greek Scientist Society. So we cannot wait to discuss more about space from September onwards. And of course, a big thank you to all of our attendees. Just a final note, if you would like to participate, present a talk, organize an event, seminar, workshop at the Greek Scientist Society, please do not hesitate to contact us.
Mm-hmm.
Please do follow us for the upcoming meetings on space economy and more areas of interest from September. Until our next meetup, take care, enjoy your holidays, and have a nice evening. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.